Bears, blog, boys, you know it all, computer, analytic, geeky nerds. Michael Schneider, Tom Cavanaugh, the Bear, blog, boys, know-it-alls, doing some podcast somewhere. Nobody wants to hear you. Geeks, you pencil-pushing, skinny jean wearing geeks, you.
Coming to you live from our mom's basement, this is the Bears Blog Boys podcast. I am your co-host, Tom Cavanaugh, here with my good buddy and other co-host, Michael Schneider. Schneider, we didn't have you last week because you were experiencing some technical difficulties, but glad to have you on now. How you been doing, buddy? And are you excited for some Bears preseason football starting?
Good, brother. Thank you for asking. Just been overloaded with work. Haven't had a lot of time on my hands, but here, off today, locked in for this podcast here, Tom. There's a lot to talk about, a lot that we're going to cover. So I'm fired up, excited to sit down and talk ball.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about this episode because it feels like the season is here. I know it's at a preseason capacity. It's not like, the Bears are playing the Vikings this week, but still it's something to look forward to. It's real football. We'll get to see live reps against another team. And we kind of got a little preview of that even before this week with the Bears family night, which they kind of do their live scrimmage in front of the fans. I don't know if you were able to catch any of that, Snyder. I kind of wanted to start there. Any big takeaways if you had any? I know it was on a very small sample of reps we were actually able to see, but if you had any big takeaways.
Yeah, no, I really didn't see too much of it, Tom, so the floor is yours.
I just want to talk about Caleb because I thought his performance was mixed based on what people were seeing. But I think my big takeaway and just kind of overall where I think Caleb's really going to succeed, at least early on in this offense, is his short passing ability. If you look at how even his strengths last year as a passer, I think the most redeeming part of his game was definitely the 0 to 10 yard range. That was where he was most comfortable throwing it. That was where he was at his best. And what drove me crazy about the Bears offense was it was a bunch of low efficiency routes though, right? It was a bunch of stop routes, a bunch of Keenan Allen stops in the middle of a zone type of route where it doesn't go anywhere after he catches it. But I thought Caleb Williams' feel for underneath defenders was actually really good. And he had a really good sense of timing in those parts of the field as well. Now, do you want to see him expand his game, get better as a deep passer, get better as an intermediate passer? Absolutely. But I think that's something to work with because I think that's usually pretty stable. I think deep passing is kind of volatile to where short passing is a lot more stable. I think that's more of a skill that is repeatable. And I think that was the best thing he did last year. And if you look at the efficiency metrics, I think they largely agree with what I'm saying. And just watching some of the clips in training camp, some of the clips in the family night or the family game, I think you saw that. I think you saw he was most comfortable hitting receivers underneath, and he was actually able to get guys on crossers underneath. And there were some big, big plays there. And I think that's going to be the difference with this offense. They're going to be higher efficiency routes and will also align with where Caleb was doing his best work last year. So that's what made me really, really excited. There's a bunch of crossers that went for big plays in the best plays that I saw last year. There was also a really tight throw in the red zone. Colston Loveland was matched up on Jaquan Brisker, and it was basically a little angle route, and Caleb was able to hit him within the rhythm of the play when Colston Loveland had a step of separation. So I think all of those skills where you saw Caleb be really, really precise and a very condensed part of the field is very encouraging from what I've seen so far.
You know what, Tom? That makes me really excited because here, we all expect the offensive line to be a lot better, right? But ultimately, offensive line success is in tune with the quarterback, right? So if he is hitting those 1 to 2, and he's processing very quickly, and like I said, if you see Loveland shaking guys off the line of scrimmage, and then to where last year, you said the routes were kind of inefficient, and they're primarily those easy releases to Keenan Allen. But now if you're giving those to Colston Loveland, maybe DJ Moore, maybe get creative with Rome and Luther Burden, guys who could, shake off the line of scrimmage fairly quickly. If Caleb is hitting, those guys short, That was going to be quick passing, right? A big criticism with him is his long time to throw, where he's holding onto the ball. But if you're unleashing that or something, he is a strength in that 1 to 10, but now it's a lot quicker, right? You're doing it more in rhythm, and like he's getting you there. That's going to help the entire offense as a whole, right? If, let's say Ozzie is a starter or Braxton, who, he's still kind of questionable, even Jonah. If you are getting rid of the ball quicker, it's going to make those guys' life so much more easier. So, if you combine, you said that's Caleb's strength, combine that with Ben Johnson being more creative with the routes, having guys who could just get off the line of scrimmage very quickly, and then Caleb just hitting them there, processing it with anticipation, it's going to make the whole thing, the whole engine run so much more smooth.
I totally agree. I think that's going to be a lot of what this offense is. And Center, I went back. This was I tweeted this on June 4th, and I just went through some of the efficiency stats with Jared Goff and compared them from Caleb Williams to last year with passes under 10 air yards. So Jared Goff, he had 384 attempts in that range, which was 9th in the NFL. His completion percentage over the expected was plus 5.4%, which was first in the NFL. His EPA per dropback was 0.29, which was also first in the NFL. But his PFF grade was 77.6, which was 18th. To whereas Caleb Williams had a very similar attempt range, 388 attempts. That was 7th in the NFL. His completion percentage over the expected was plus 2.2%, which was 11th. His EPA per dropback was 0.06, which was 13th. But his PFF grade was 80.5, which was 8th in the NFL. So I think like if you just watched the film was maybe just as good as Jared Goff, but the system clearly wasn't, right? The efficiency clearly wasn't. And that's what gets me really, really excited because that's what the system is going to allow for those plays that are, they're shorter to the line of scrimmage, but they're going to be creating more opportunities for explosive, more yak plays. I mean, and also the skill sets that this kind of what Caleb Williams has around him is going to lend itself to more explosives in those areas in the field as well. I think we saw on a handful of plays on the family night, I saw DJ Moore break one loose, a break across or loose. Olamide Zaccheaus break one, Rome break one. I think I also saw Luther Burden with the second team break one. That's what this offense is going to be. And it just gets me really, really excited to, like you said, Snyder, he can make the situation around him better from an offensive line standpoint, but also run the system as it's intended to run. And this will be a much, much better system than he was in last year.
Yeah, and here, it's going to sound so crazy for me to say this. When you look at like the Bears personnel, right, in just terms of yards after the catch, right, I'm not taking anything away from St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, right? But you look at those pass catchers, and they're not like, to me, like I'm saying the Bears guys, like Loveland, Burden, DJ Moore, like they're naturally better at yards after the catch, right? You've seen last year DJ Moore, I think he was like top 3 in yards after the catch in a system that, wasn't giving you those efficient routes, wasn't giving you a lot of opportunities. And then you've seen a guy like Jameson Williams, right? Who was, I'm pretty sure, top 10 in yards after the catch, but he was really low in missed tackles forced, right? But Ben Johnson gave him so many opportunities just to run in open space. Same thing with Sam Laporta. Same thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Not taking anything away from them, but if you just look at yak ability, right, with DJ Moore and Luther Burden, it could really unlock something even more with Ben Johnson. So that's what really, really excites me, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to get excited about it. And I don't want to say, like, from the clips that I saw, it was all, it was all great from Caleb Williams. Like, there was definitely some struggles in there. There was definitely some plays you wish, or Caleb would definitely wish he could have back. I think the one ugly play was, to be fair, he was under immediate pressure right away. I think it was a blitz, and then Ozzie lost his rep, and then Caleb kind of just threw it up into coverage. I don't know if he was trying to throw it away and he just couldn't get enough on it, but it was a really, really bad interception. And I think, Snyder, you're going to see plays like that throughout the preseason, throughout the regular season. There's going to be some struggles. Like I talked about it on my solo pod last week. Like, this is a very complex offense from all the sounds of what everyone's saying. It's very complex. It's very detail oriented. So I don't think it's going to be like this is going to hit the ground running right away. I think there's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some mistakes. But I think ultimately it was hard to come away from last year like, okay, what is Caleb Williams like? What system fits him best? And I think that there's some at least initial steps forward to finding out what that system is, what that's going to look like. I think it's going to be a lot of short passes that lead to yak situations, like you said, with using all those different playmakers, which gets me really fired up. So the last thing I want to talk about, just about training camp and the family game. I think I'm really shocked about how quickly Colston Loveland is coming into his own and everything that the coaching staff is raving about him, because he'd missed all of OTAs. He missed all of rookie minicamp, yet he comes into training camp and seems like pretty easily the tight end one and is going to be a large part of this offense, which I had high hopes for him, Steiner, but I didn't see him taking to things as quickly as he has been.
No, you're right. So I didn't expect that at all, right? I kind of compared it to there's always going to be a ton of Lions comparisons, right? When you bring over Ben Johnson. When Sam Laporta was drafted really high by the Lions, I looked at their depth chart like, dude, this guy has no competition, right? Who was it? Was it Scooby Wright, Brock Wright? I forgot. Yeah, Brock Wright, right?
Same difference.
Yeah. So I see, Laporta is going to get a ton of action here. He has no competition. But in this scenario, it was different. So you could say, yes, Loveland was the much higher pick, but then you had just a professional tight end in Cole Kmet, who's very experienced. He has instincts blocking. He's a pro-ready tight end, right? Obviously, you drafted Colston Loveland because he has more upside and he has more juice. So I thought, like, man, that's going to be kind of shaky for, Loveland, at least his stat line, right? I knew he was going to make an impact. I knew you were going to get creative with 12 personnel, putting him in the slot. I think you could even put him out wide and just have this crazy mismatch using his size and length. And then you have Cole Kmet inside. So I knew Loveland was going to hit the field, but I kind of worried about, like, maybe his, targets, catches, and, like, what his, yardage was going to look like. But, man, how thankful am I that we have a coach like Ben Johnson, who's probably prioritizing his ability to get off the line of scrimmage, to win deep, right? Be that mismatch, use his speed, be a man beater, right? So thankfully, Ben Johnson, that's what he's prioritizing. Like, hey, this is just a mismatch. It is going to open the field. It's going to open up our offense significantly better than Cole Kmet can. Now, he's going to have a role, Cole Kmet, but Colston Loveland unlocked something so much more. That's why he was drafted so high. Mm-hmm. So, again, I am so happy, so thankful to see that he is getting a ton of action. And when you see, a lot of the reporters, a lot of people going to the practice, they just say, he just looks like – he doesn't look like a tight end. He doesn't look like a wide receiver. He just looks like a mismatch, right? And that's exactly what Ben Johnson wanted. And, again, if he can make an impact early on, did not expect that. That just, again, really, really exciting.
Yeah, I could not be more pleased with everything you hear, and I think you're spot on, Steiner, about the reports and he doesn't move like a tight end. This is a different kind of guy, and that's why I thought the fit made so much sense, because we talk about Ben Johnson needs his Laporta or he needs his Amon-Ra St. Brown, but really I don't think it's ever a copy and paste type of skill set. I really just think he's looking for very unique players, and I know you can't modify the word unique, but yes, he's looking for unique players that allow him to do different things. That's why they valued Gibbs as high as they did. That's why they valued Laporta as highly as they did. And that's why they built the role around Amon-Ra St. Brown the way that they have. So yeah, they might not be a copy and paste skill set from what he had in Detroit, but a guy like Colston Loveland, a guy like Luther Burden, if those guys hit and are what we think they are going to be, they allow him to do so much more than just have a couple of cool packages. No, he can actually use them to break defensive formations and personnel packages. And that's what he wants to do. That's why Ben Johnson is the play caller that he is, because he finds mismatches, he finds matchups he really likes, and he spams them in different ways. So yeah. That guy says, do you guys think Caleb will play a ton on Sunday? Why don't we that's a great transition, Steiner. We can jump right into the preseason game. So the Lions were one of these teams that I don't think they ever played their starters under Dan Campbell, at least not when they actually had playoff expectations. So That's a really good question, Snyder. That's kind of where I wanted to start. Do we think the starters will play? And like mainly, do we think Caleb is going to play? And how much do we think he's going to play?
I think it's going to be so debated, Tom, to where it's like you have this new coach and you have these players learning a totally new complex system, and they should be playing, yes, right? But at the end of the day, is Ben Johnson going to show his hand? No, right? I always thought the preseason was so watered down. He's not going to put on film, to let his week one opponent in the Vikings, see that and watch film on that. Like, that's not going to work. It's going to be, I don't think he's going to run anything in the preseason that he's actually going to run in season, right? So that's a counterpoint to what I initially said. But again, I think some of these guys, you need live reps in full pads, because there's stuff you're going to have to evaluate. You're still going to have to get comfortable. So Tom, I'm so in the middle on it. I am not like super passionate one way or the other. And again, there's always that injury risk that you don't really want to take. So again, I am so torn, Tom. Like, I don't really have a passionate take. We're like, yeah, they got to do it. They should do it. Again, I am so in the middle with this one.
I think I would play Caleb. So here's the thing, Senator. Would I play guys like DJ Moore, Grady Jarrett, Montez Sweat, like Kevin Byard? Like, I don't think you need to play any of those guys. Joe Tooney, like, I don't think any of those guys need to play. But I would play Caleb for a couple of drives, like at least 2 to 3 drives. I think it's a very fair number. And yeah, are you going to show the plays where you're throwing the ball to Ozzie Trapilo? No, right? Like, you're not going to do those trick plays for the sake of doing so, just to show how cool Ben Johnson is as a play caller. You're not. But like the install plays, the meat and potato plays, like the stuff that you're going to run, you think are going to be plays that you're going to run a lot of, like the big play action plays, the stuff that Ben Johnson wants to do over the middle of the field. I think those are reps that are very, very valuable. And yeah, you're not going to show your best stuff. You don't want to show your best stuff. But the meat and potatoes of your playbook, I think, are good reps to get against another defense for a team that's clearly still learning, right? Clearly still learning this offense. I think it would be pretty valuable to have Caleb and most of this offense, most of the young parts of this offense, go out and execute that against another NFL defense.
Yeah, and I guess here, an argument against my point would be like, hey, you've seen the issues with the deep ball accuracy.
Yes.
And then even like, in that 10 to 20 range, you want Caleb to build that connection more with Rome, with DJ, with Burden, with Zacchaeus, with Loveland, right? Like, you do want to see that. So again, maybe that's why you can argue like, hey, they need to play because they need to get this timing down in live action with pads. Because again, it was bad last year. And again, there's reasons you could point at, but again, Caleb did have to grow there. That's when you could point the finger at him. So that's a good argument to why you do need these live reps with the starters, with Caleb.
Yeah, I think that would be my argument. Just to see it again, they don't have to play a whole half, right? Like you don't have to go that far extreme, but I think a couple series would be good. I mean, and especially if they get things right and execute, build some confidence, right? Like heading into the season, like just to show that, hey, all this hard work that you guys have been doing in the training camp has been paying off to some extent, and you are getting a better feel for this offense. Like I think that and Steiner, I'll be honest too, and again, this is like such a probably extrapolation from what I've seen from a handful of reps. The Bears defense has been tough, right? Like there's not a whole lot of busted coverage. Like even on the plays that Caleb was completing, there are guys like right in the back pocket, and that's kind of what Dennis Allen does, right? It's a very match-oriented defense. There's not a lot of open space. It's not like zones where guys are supposed to be in areas of the field. It's like, no, they're matching up against receivers. So this has been a tough defense to go up against, and I would like to see if this offense has more successful against maybe a different style of defense with probably what they'll see in a preseason game against the Dolphins. So yeah, I would definitely play Caleb a little bit, but I don't think if he does play, I would imagine he gets pulled in some point in the first quarter. Maybe they play like the entire first quarter and that's it. I don't think I'd play him any more than that. And to be honest, that's kind of what I expect Ben Johnson to do as well. Why don't we keep rolling through our preview center that we talked about Caleb and kind of who we expect to play in this one. I think the competition that everyone is going to be watching out for, or everyone should be watching out for, is the Bears left tackle battle. It sounded like Ozzie was the one getting first team reps at first. And then, I don't know, it seems like Ozzie's kind of struggled. At least he did in that game, in that family game. From what I was watching, there was a couple ugly reps he put on our tape. And then Braxton Jones is I think, kind of like finally coming back to his old self in full form. And then, Kieran is still in the mix as well. So, Senator, I don't know if you have any like expectations or what you expect on the playing time in this game, but I'm sure we'll see something from all three of these guys in this preseason game, throughout the preseason, to be honest.
Yeah, that's going to be highlighted, right? That's going to be talk of the town, the main takeaway on how they're going to do. Yeah, I don't know which way it's going to go, right? Like here, you look at Braxton Jones. He's been solid, right? Like you drafted him in the 5th round. You basically handed him a starting spot his whole entire career, right? And you wrote a big article about it. I think your headline was like, the fact that it hasn't been a disaster was really good, right? It was a really good find. And again, he has highlights in the run game, but he never had serious competition, right? And this is the first time Ozzie Trapilo, could just straight up beat him in camp. So there's a lot of pressure on Braxton Jones. And it kind of sucks that he's coming back from an injury. Maybe he's not at full strength. Maybe he is. I don't know. But yeah, I really don't know which way that is going to go. Here, maybe like selfish, like you maybe want it to go towards Trapilo because he's going to be on a rookie contract for the next 4 years. And this is the last year of Braxton Jones, right? Or you could argue, okay, hey, maybe you let it ride with Braxton Jones. He is solid. You let him walk in free agency. You get a comp pick, and you got Trapilo right there in the wings. Maybe it works out that way. So I think it's a good situation to have from a roster standpoint, and I think you got flexibility long term. But yeah, I don't know how this is going to shake out at all. But there's a lot of layers to it, depending how it does.
There's definitely a lot of layers to it. I love the point that you brought up about if you gave this coaching staff some true serum, Snyder, I think they would tell you they want Ozzie to win the job because that's the guy they drafted. That's the guy that they have now on a long-term contract that they probably want to groom and for him to really earn that left tackle of the future spot. But like you said, you have Braxton Jones, who is capable. As far as we know, given him coming back on the injury, I don't know if that's going to make him any less of himself, that injury he's coming off of. And I thought his insight about like talking about his journey, kind of getting back mentally, physically, it's taken a lot out of him. He's like, this is the first time I've really been tested throughout my NFL career to like, really, what am I going to do to get back? That's what he said. And I was like, that's really, really powerful stuff. So I'm sure he's going to want to earn this job. He wants his payday. This is a contract year for him. And even if he's not brought back by the Bears, he's putting out tape for all 31 other teams. So that's going to be a really big competition for him. I know it's like a very small sample, like I said, but Ozzie was struggling in the reps that I saw. Austin Booker got him a handful of times. So I think this preseason game of anybody is going to be the biggest for him. Okay, can he actually hang as a rookie with the starters? Because if he can't, I think this will be Braxton Jones's job pretty easily. And so I expect Steiner, I don't know who's going to start. I expect one to play each quarter. I expect Ozzie and I guess each quarter of the half, Ozzie and Braxton to split the first half. I bet we see a good bit of them to see who is going to really earn this job. And I think the one you see less of is the one that they're more confident in starting.
Yeah, that's typically how it works out in the preseason time. But again, this is going to be such a debate, right? However it shakes out, there's going to be a lot of layers, much more discussion on what you do. And let's say Ozzie wins. I'm on the boat. Like, I'm not trying to trade Braxton Jones or anything because I want the depth, right? Like, I want this team. So, again, then could you get creative with him and use him as a swing tackle? There's going to be so much discussion, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that one's going to be a highlight, I think, on every Bears fan's mind. And, again, a lot of layers to that one.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of layers. That's definitely the competition I think is the most notable because I think it's the most up in the air. One that you kind of shed some light on before we started recording that I did not know was as much of a competition as it seems like it is. That's the CB2 spot. So I know Nashawn Wright has been like a training camp hype guy. Like the coaching staff has kind of pointed him out a couple times where he could really be in the mix here. Tyreek Stevenson, Terrell Smith. They have a handful of options, and maybe we shouldn't call him the CB2 because I don't know how they'll do like base defense. Like if Kyler Gordon is actually the CB2, who just kicks into the slot. But I guess that third or second starting corner spot, that's who is in this competition center. So again, kind of like the left tackle competition, I can see these guys splitting a handful of reps. I mean, I still think it's Tyreek Stevenson's job to lose just because I think he's the most talented. Like Nashawn Wright was like a 5th round pick. Like I would be really shocked if he ended up winning the job, but it's not impossible.
Wasn't Nashawn Wright, like drafted by like the Cowboys?
Yes,
like
with Al Harris. That's why he was brought over. The connection makes sense.
And he like wasn't on, like they drafted him in the 3rd round. He like wasn't on the consensus board or something like that. They drafted him early, but I forgot about the Al Harris connection, and that's obviously why he's there. But I heard his name a lot, right? And maybe that's just that camp. Bears fans, if you want to dial it back, I always joke about Tom with this one. Sounds like it was every year for about 3 years where Deion Bush was like the shit at training camp without pads, was looking like the safety of the future. When everyone was gonna ride Adrian Amos out of town, like don't worry about it, Deion Bush, and he was looking like a stud. So I don't know if it's like kind of like that type of talk with Nashawn Wright. But again, you always get like one guy out of training camp who looks really good in pads, and you never hear from him in the season.
I think in like an ideal world, Nashawn Wright fits a lot of what Dennis Allen wants to do and like the corners that he wants. Like he's a tall, long corner that's going to probably be his best stuff is going to be in press coverage. And we didn't even mention Zay Frazier either. So like a lot of the body types make sense for what they want. And are maybe they looking for more just a role player that's going to do what he does? Because ultimately, though, I think that's what Tyreek Stevenson is. And he's probably the most talented one, non-Jalen Johnson outside corner. He's the most talented one that they have on the roster. So I really hope he wins that job. But we've seen it. Tyreek Stevenson's been an inconsistent player. So maybe that's kind of what they're wanting more from. But I trust Al Harris. Whoever he thinks wins that job, he's such a good DB coach that I'm going to trust whoever they put out there in week 1.
Yeah, and I want it to be Tyreek Stevenson, right? I think I've been talking about this all off season. I just like the way he plays, right? I like the way how physical he is. He's a willing tackler. But then his breaks on the ball and then his arm length, right? Like he is in the top of the league in like pass breakups, right? But then like he's not really like, I know like a lot of people, I know he had his blunder on the Commanders game, but he's not high penalized, right? And he plays physically. Like he plays physically through the catch point, through the defenders. So again, I really like Tyreek Stevenson just from an eye test. Ignore like the advanced stats on it. I don't think that's the best way to evaluate the cornerback room. Just again, eye test it. I like what I've seen from Tyreek Stevenson. Obviously, he needs some things to clean up. So again, I hope it's his job. Like you said, in my opinion, as well, the most talented of that competition right there.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to see a bit of all of them. And, sometimes I can be a real sicko when it comes to preseason and like watch the game all the way through just to like see certain players. I think this position group among all of them is going to be the one to probably monitor the most throughout the entirety of the game. Cause like, I really think anybody, if they have a good enough camp and a good enough preseason, could elevate themselves into like a rotation or maybe even the starting job if Tyreek Stevenson isn't as sure of a thing as we thought. Because, hey, what if Zay Frazier has a really good game and he, really takes a hold of this job? Like, I think everything's kind of in the realm of possibilities. But yes, I ultimately hope Tyreek Stevenson can win this job. Another interesting one, Snyder, that I was kind of surprised that Roschon Johnson wasn't getting as much reps, or honestly hasn't been discussed at all. And I don't even like Roschon. I just thought he was a good compliment to Swift. It sounds like Monungai is the RB2 in the lead right now. That is actually going to be the RB2 of what the Bears currently have in their backfield, because he was the one getting first team reps over Roschon Johnson. in that family game on a handful of series. So that's one I'm going to be monitoring as well. How much is Monangai going to be playing? Is Swift even going to play in the preseason? Who's going to start? If Swift doesn't play, I think that will be very telling, because I do think that there is like the short yardage element. That's what kind of the role that they're going to be battling for, the Monangais and Roschon Johnson. And it sounds like Monangai is the one who's really taken a hold of this job.
Yeah, I'm starting to believe that there is going to be in between the tackles, goal line back that is going to be implemented in this offense. It's not Swift, right? I think he'll get his opportunities there, but I just think and again, with Mungie, I think he's going to have like the instincts to be better there, right? Than Swift has, who has no instincts in between the tackles, at the goal line. So again, I hope he can carve out a role there. And I think it's going to be interesting to follow, Tom. I wonder do they feel good about Roschon there? I don't know, right? I think that preseason is actually going to be really telling there. I think that is going to be a role to where maybe you take those carries away from Swift, and then you get maybe more efficient with him in the other areas, and just have a guy do a dirty work. I thought it would be Roschon, but again, it's not going to surprise me if it is Maggie.
Yeah, and it's funny, Sutter, the coach index, I don't know if whoever follows him, he's a great follow. He like monitors what a coach is saying, how reliable what they're saying is, like in terms of how it kind of unfolds on Sunday. Ben Johnson has talked about Roschon Johnson 0 times since he's been the Bears head coach, which I don't know if that's telling in a good or in a bad way or in a good way. But I think it's telling to some extent. And, they drafted Monangai, right? I even when I watched him, I texted you, I was like, he looks like Jamal Williams. Like, they have a lot of similarities. And beyond just the short yardage stuff, especially for week 1 against the Vikings, Monangai, of all the backs I watched, was by far the best pass protecting back in the draft. Like, he was stellar at that. And that's not Swift at all. Like, I know Swift does a lot of really good things in the passing game and will have a role there for sure. But against these blitz-heavy defenses where you're keeping your back in to protect, Roschon or Monangai is going to have a big role, I would predict, in week 1, right? Because that is a really, really important part of this offense. That was something David Montgomery never really got the credit for. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't play that much until he took a step in the pass protection game. So I think that's where Monangai, if he really seizes this job, that's going to be why, because he is a stellar pass protecting running back.
Yeah, and that's important, Tom. I mean, you can't overlook that, right? You can always talk about the explosive guy, the guy who's, making guys miss in well-open field, but you need that bruiser to really take in a block, win in between the tackles. And again, I like Swift, but that's not his game.
Right. But I mean, Senator, I was excited about how they were using Swift in that family game. There was a big play where he's used out of the backfield. Like I'm really excited about actually kind of what Swift's role is going to be in this offense. I think the Bears are just going to be really, really hard to defend with some of their gadget touches and gadget plays. Like I think this is like Ben Johnson's Toys R Us moment in terms of everything he has to work with in that regard. So I'm really excited just to see how the backfield kind of unfolds. But I think that Roschon Monangai competition is the one I'm going to be looking forward to the most. I think this is Swift's backfield ultimately, though, with like the amount of touches. It's just that being said, I don't think he's going to play that much in the preseason. So the next one, again, you brought this up as well with the wide receivers, the wide receiver 3 battle. Luther Burden just comes back from injury. Zaccheaus has been there the entire time. Zaccheaus kind of fits more of like the role player type that has been with Ben Johnson and Detroit's offense in the past. But Luther Burden's obviously the more highly invested player, the more dynamic player. How much do we expect Luther Burden to kind of hit the ground running? And who will be the wide receiver 3 to start the season? Senator, do you think we'll have any light shed on that competition throughout the preseason?
Yeah, so I'm actually fired up to talk about this, right? You talk to a lot of Bears fans. Right now you have not clear wide receiver 1 and 2, but we all envision that DJ Moore and Adunze, they have their solidified roles. They're going to lead the team in the target. They're going to be the clear-cut wide receiver 1 and 2 there, right? And you talk to some Bears fans, like hey, I think Adunze is going to be the wide receiver one. Like he'll have the most targets, most receptions. Then you say, no, I think it's going to be DJ Moore because what he could do after the catch, right? So like there's a lot of debate there. I think you look at FanDuel. I think they had DJ Moore. His over under is like closer to 1,000. I think Adunze is closer to I think like 850 or something like that, right? But again, a lot of people say Rome's breaking out. So there's a lot of discussion there. Obviously, we all know DJ Moore and Adunze are going to have huge roles in this offense. But the wide receiver 3 battle is so intriguing to me because you look at Luther Burden, right? This is a guy, when you just look at the talent, could have been the number 1 wide receiver taken in this draft, right? Just talent alone. His athletic ability, his ability after the catch is just special. The way he can just stop and go, turn it up and break away for a touchdown is some of the best I've ever seen coming out of college. But then also he can win deep. Like he has separation ability, but then at the catch point, he has strong hands, right? He's not really going to get up and grab it like you can see in Adunze do it, but he like fights and he muscles the ball and takes it in, right? I think there's a case. I think it can go one of two ways. I think Luther Burden could really stand out during the preseason. Now you're talking about a 3-headed monster at the wide receiver spot, right? Where it's like everyone's real close in targets, real close in yards, real close in receptions. There's not really one guy that's your clear wide receiver 1, which again sounds so exciting. So I think there could be a way where Luther Burden breaks into that role and it's just like a 3-headed monster, right? But there's also a scenario where, maybe he doesn't, and then he's really fighting for the field with Zacchaeus, right? You're going to have 12 personnel where you have Komet and Loveland on the field, and, does that bump off Burden? Or, you've seen DJ Moore align from the backfield, right? Does Luther Burden, if DJ Moore's in the backfield, does Luther Burden go out wide? Or is there cases where Luther Burden's in the backfield, right? So I think there's a lot of pressure and a lot of, we'll see, can Luther Burden really kind of ball out this preseason and carve out an immediate role, right? Can he be that next guy up? If there's an injury, is it Burden being the next guy up? Whatever it is, I think there's a lot of pressure and I think a lot of questions to be answered. What happens if Luther Burden balls out this preseason? He absolutely can.
Yep. I mean, I think we talked about like the most important competition was probably the left tackle competition, but someone who I think can like earn the most playing time and touches in this preseason is by far and away to me Luther Burden. I think the other roles are more solidified, and Luther Burden, I think he's not the odd man out, but he's definitely, I think, like the most questionable on the pecking order. Okay, which guys are going to get the most touches, because we know that Ben Johnson says the guys we want to get the ball to are the guys that are like bought into the system and doing the dirty work, small details of the position. And I am glad that Luther Burden is competing with a guy who specializes in that, right? So if you're going to unseat Olamide Zacchaeus and really find your way on the field, you're going to have to do the dirty work things as good as he does, which Olamide Zacchaeus, undrafted guy, has had to like fight for everything he's ever gotten in the NFL. You're going up against an absolute dog. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Yeah, so he's going up against an absolute dog, and let's say he balls out in the preseason, Snyder. He's so good, you can't keep him off the field. That's what I think is a very realistic possibility that happens, because Luther Burden is that damn dynamic to where in the preseason game he can make people look silly. I mean, in the NFL games he can make people look silly because he's that dynamic of a talent. So if he balls out, he can really earn his way onto the field. But I think the things you want to see him hammer out is the small stuff I just brought up: blocking, running your routes, full intensity, every single route, not just the ones you're getting the ball to. And he's going to have the opportunity to do that. And if he does that well, I think you're just going to see his snaps go up and up and up.
isn't that great for him, Tom? I know we've talked about this before, but like, how great of a situation, right? Someone who, again, a lot of scouts, and you've seen it on the tape, question his like intensity, motor, and everything. Everyone talked about the talent, and just a guy who, in one season prior to his final college season, had 1,300 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Was talked about being the number one overall pick, and then again, offense was really bad, quarterback was really bad, team was really bad, and you kind of understand why some of those guys check out. But at the end of the day, it's like, hey, like you have an opportunity to lock yourself as a first round pick to make generational wealth. You should be bought in, right? You should be that leader, right? So I understand that. But here, a guy that, who I just said could have been the number one drafted wide receiver just in terms of talent, falls to round 2, has an uphill battle to see the field, has an intense coach like Ben Johnson, gets paired in with Antoine Randall L. What a great situation for a guy to really kind of maybe be humbled and just have that chip on his shoulder, have that motivation to really, really get after it.
I'm expecting him to play a lot of the preseason. I think Snyder disconnected here, but I'm expecting him to play most of the preseason, Luther Burden. He's one of the guys I think that the Bears are going to want to get the most looks at, understandably so. I mean, just him not being able to play a lot of rookie minicamp, a lot of in the OTAs due to that injury. I think they're going to want to get him a lot of reps because they can't afford that aspect of playing him more. He's not a guy that they're relying on to be an every down player right now. He's played mostly with the second team so far. Like even in the family game, he was playing mostly with the second team. He was doing really well. But that's something they're going to want to see a lot from. So I expect him to play like basically all of the first half in this preseason game. And I'm excited. Senator, I think you kind of brought up a good point about the alignment. If DJ Moore doesn't play in the preseason, are they going to show some of their hand with the alignment of what they envision for Luther Burden? Because right now, again, I don't want to call him the odd man out, but he's not like someone I have like this role envisioned of in my head. I think there's a bunch of different ways you can use him. So are they going to show that a little bit, what they have planned for Burden? Or are they going to just kind of fill him in DJ Moore's role because he's playing with the backups? That's what I'm interested to see. But it should be interesting. The last two guys I want to talk about, Snyder, Austin Booker resurgence. Sounds like he's making some waves again, right? And my thing with Austin Booker was he going to be this like Chase Winovich type of player, right? Where he's like really technical, has a great feel for pass rushing, and against backups kills them, right? Because he's so good with his hands, has such a natural feel. But when he comes to NFL Sundays and he's going up against NFL athletes at tackle, is he going to fall off? Like, is this legit? Because I don't have many questions about him as a pass rusher from a technical standpoint. It's really, does he have the juice to consistently threaten tackles? That's what my big concern with Austin Booker is. And I don't know if the preseason will shed any more light, get us any closer to figuring that out. But I do think that as your third, you want your third edge rusher on the team to show some intriguing flashes. So I'm excited to see what really is in store for Austin Booker. But again, I will just tell everyone to temper their expectations maybe, because I can see him really succeeding in the preseason and it not really translating as much to the regular season.
See, that was the thing with Austin Booker, right? With the Bears being on Hard Knocks. You loved his motor, right? And I think a lot of people liked when he was drafted as well. A lot of people expected him to actually go higher. A lot of people said, like, hey, if he would have stayed in college, he would have been a first-round guy. I just remember those narratives around him. Tom, if Austin Booker could actually grow and emerge into a role, I think the Bears need that, right? We have guys like Turner, Dexter, Deo, guys who you talk about, hey, on early downs, they're outside, and then on passing downs, you got to kick them inside because they don't have enough juice. On third and longs, we have too many of those guys, right? We need that juice on third and long. And I hope and I pray that Austin Booker can be that dude to provide more juice. I think right now we just have a lot of dudes that, yeah, they'll push the pocket, they'll collapse the pocket. They're not going to get tossed and, lose at, get pushed back at the line of scrimmage like we're actually been accustomed to seeing the last few years. But we need that third and long, just juice type of guy off the edge. And I just hope Austin Booker can grow and develop into that role. But, it almost was a weird fit to where, this ain't really a good fit with Dennis Allen. So there was questions around that. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, Tom, if he can carve out a role.
Yeah, I think the player you point to of who a realistic career arc could be for Austin Booker is Arden Key, who was, again, one of these guys who was really highly touted, falls in the draft because he didn't test very well, was undersized. Like, he tested pretty average for his size, but like throughout his career has taken real strides and has become a really, really good rotational pass rusher, like one of the best rotational pass rushers in the NFL. And if that was like the best case scenario for Austin Booker, that would be an absolute win. And they have a very similar profiles, both similar in height, similar weight, similar testing. I think and the cool part about Arden Key was like, I think the Niners were like the first team to kind of use him inside. Maybe that's where Austin Booker is better and is not like maybe a true edge rusher. He's a guy you move around a little bit more. And if that's the case on like long and late downs as a 5th round pick, that's an absolute win. It's just whether or not I still have my concerns about him. Like whenever I watch him, like he always has to like win back inside, and like that's just not going to fly in the NFL. Like you have to be able to challenge tackles either through their chest or through their outside shoulder. And if you can't do that, then I have some concerns about you in terms of your impact as an edge rusher. And this is a guy that was like never a great run defender either. So he's going to be a pass rush specialist. He needs to be able to win in multiple ways. I haven't seen that yet, but I am hopeful, right? I think that there are tools there to work with. So he's one I'm definitely going to be watching out for in this preseason on defense for sure. I'll probably watch all of his snaps to see if there's anything new I learned from him. But yeah, really excited about him. The last guy, Snyder, Ruben Hippolyte, the 4th round pick that sent shockwaves through the draft world that no one really heard about. He's got a lot of buzz in OTAs and minicamp. I think you've heard a lot less about him because my questions about him were, okay, how does this guy process? How does this guy read offenses and be where he's supposed to be? And I think in a setting like OTAs, minicamp, where he's just allowed to be an athlete and run around, he's going to look great. It's the preseason games I really want to see. Okay, did he actually take strides? Is he getting better coaching? Does he have a better idea what he's doing? Because if he does, then I am really excited about him as a 3rd linebacker, maybe even a replacement for Tremaine Edmonds. But I thought before the draft, or I guess when I watched him in college, there was a long way before I could get that confident with him.
Yeah, I'm interested to see him, Tom, because here, when I look at Ruben Hippolyte being drafted into the 4th round, I think that's a good spot to take swings at the inside linebacker position. And you look at Tremaine Edmonds, right? Struggled last year. It's severely overpaid. Last year of guaranteed money. You want Ruben Hippolyte to stand out, right? You want him to show promise so he can eventually, take over that spot and the Bears could be in a more flexible spot financially, right? But that's why you want Ruben Hippolyte to be really good, is because it's going to be really good for the long-term financial situation of the Bears. Again, a guy that, Tom, what was the consensus reach on this one?
I think it was like 100 and something picks. It was a big one. Yeah. I think it was more than that. I think he was like 374th on the consensus board, something crazy like that.
Yeah. So again, we need him to show something there to kind of warrant that. But again, the expectations aren't high for him. But again, if that's Dennis Allen's guy, hopefully we see something.
Yeah, and I'm curious because they talk about him more as like a Sam linebacker, more of the 3rd linebacker, strong side, like run defending first. But my thing with him is like if he's going to work out, I think he'll be a good coverage player. That was like kind of the skill set I saw for him. And just in terms of like how he moved, I didn't think he was like super instinctual, but like he moved really, really. I mean, that's why they took him where they did. I mean, for all the criticisms I had with him, he was an absolute elite athlete. I mean, 4.45 40 at 240 pounds. That's just absurd stuff, right? So there's definitely like tools to work with. It's just I don't think we're going to see a lot of him in a meaningful role in the regular season. Hopefully we don't. So this will be the time to learn about, okay, is he actually picking things up faster than it looked like he did in college? So that's what I'm excited to see. Other than that, though, Snyder, I don't think there's any other players I'm like truly watching out for. I'm not really watching out for any of like the 6th and 7th round picks. I'm a sicko, but I'm not that big of a sicko. I don't know. Is there any other players that stand out to you that you're watching out for this preseason?
No, I think we covered it all, Tom. I mean, we went really in detail here. No, I think I'm good. Again, I'm excited to watch the preseason. I will be a sicko like you and watch every single snap. Probably will replay it as well. Just to get a good feel for these guys. I think there is a lot of competition, maybe a lot more than I actually expected early on.
Yeah, most definitely. I hope there is like a player that exceeds our expectations, or just like someone we didn't know about, like Nahshon Wright. Like if he really does earn the job, that would be cool. Like if he has a stellar, I hope we have a player like that, because those are always fun stories. But other than that, though, I think that's going to be it from us today. We might be back this week to do another episode, but we will definitely be back to recap the preseason game once we watch these guys and have takeaways. So until we meet again, y'all, keep it real. Bear down.
Bear down.